Okay, so this segment, I want to ask you, I had one doctor describe emotions as the gears of a car. How many emotions, or is it emotions, right? Emotions would you say there are? Because he said you can experience like happiness, fear, anger. And so some people aren't using all the gears. I can't remember if he said it was 5 or 6, but in your opinion or expertise, what would you say?
Okay.
How many emotions are?
All right. There is one emotion,
Oh.
which is fear.
Mm.
And fear is like white light. Put a prism in front of it, and it breaks up into the rainbow. Okay? So all the emotions, and if you made a list, a copy of the template I gave you last time, all the emotions are there. There's not many. I think there's about 7 or 8 basic emotions. And it is useful to be able to express all of them. For example, I used to have a difficulty with envy. I didn't know this. It took me quite a while before and to give myself permission to experience envy. It's okay to be envious. You know? Anger, I used to be really afraid of anger. Some girlfriends taught me how to experience anger. and then through martial arts, I learned to feel secure in myself, that it's okay to be angry. You know, there's a difference between anger and rage. Most people experience rage. Rage is a bull in a china shop, whereas anger is the definition of our boundaries.
Mm.
With anger, I say, you go past this, you're toast. This is my boundary. I'm not taking any shit beyond this line. Yeah. With rage, there is no boundary. You're all over the place. People are scared of you without respecting you because you're a bull in a china shop. You know, they don't know what you could do. You could do anything because there's no one at home in control. With anger, someone is most definitely at home and in control. And you cross that person at your peril, because real anger is the willingness to go to the end. There is no holds barred. Okay, that's real anger. You are willing to do whatever it takes to maintain your boundary. I'll give you examples. You see, the animal kingdom is much more civilized than we are. In the animal kingdom, they recognize anger, so they don't have to kill each other. So if you've got a pack of dogs, a pack of lions, it doesn't matter what the animals are, there comes a moment when they're vying for control and power of the herd. They want to be top dog, top animal, yeah? So you'll get a couple of them and they will go and they'll fight each other. And then for some mysterious reason, one of them gives up. Why has one of them given up? Because there's one that's given up is not willing to fight to the bitter end. The one who's top dog is the one who has the determination to stay there to the bitter end, to do what needs to be doing, regardless of the cost. The other one senses this and steps back. So that's how they don't kill each other.
It reminds me, I guess they say if your bark is not as big as your bite,
Yeah,
like you were barking, but you don't have the bite to back it up, you know?
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
So can you skip through Or I could say a situation where you have been hurt, but you don't really acknowledge it and you move past it. Because sometimes, like, we're in a situations where it requires harmony, or or you're in a state of joy, and you might be hurt, extremely hurt, but maybe don't acknowledge it, and you kind of like skip over it because you're just too busy focusing on what it is that you want to focus on. You don't have time to deal with that emotion.
Sure. We are creatures that require relationships. We don't do too well by ourselves. Yeah, none of us do. We may not like being with others, but we cannot live without others. You know, even if it's only a chicken as a friend, we need companionship.
Some people do have chickens as friends.
Yeah. But we all need companionship. It's built into our system, yeah? So in a relationship, what you've just described, I would say it's like a large container of water. When two people come together for the first time and they develop a relationship, they have this communal swimming pool, if you like, or call it what you will, but it's this container of water. And every time that there's a disagreement, an emotional conflict, a mental conflict of not seeing the world the same way, whatever it is, whenever there's emotional or mental disagreement, which is not addressed, which is not dealt with, and I'll say more on this in a second, it's like dropping a little drop of red dye in that water. Yeah? And so one little drop of red dye is nothing. It's neither here nor there. But if you have thousands of them, little by little, that water is no longer clear. It gets muddied, and you can no longer see the other person, however much you try. And then people wonder why they dislike each other.
Well, usually the one person on that side is like, hey, what's going on? Because the other person just loses it. It seems like it's out of the blue. And I say this because we discussed this before, that you don't step on somebody's foot one time and they just punch you in the eye. Usually they've built up a case. And then they're like, you know what? The next time she does anything, I'm going to punch her right in her eye. And you're like, wait a minute. Why did she just punch me in my eye? And it didn't just come out of nowhere. It's that person has ignored or not acknowledged or come to you to say all the things that they feel. And they either stop talking to you, or they yell at you, or they have some type of outburst, and you're like clueless. I think a lot of people sometimes don't want to deal with what you say, conflict, until it's too late. And then they overreact in a situation.
Sure. And
It's
then there goes another drop of red dye.
Yeah, that was the, like they say, the last straw. You just didn't see all.
That broke the camel's back, right? And
Yeah, the straw that was the camel's back. Yeah.
Yeah, like why didn't you take your shoes off at the door? Look at the mess you made, and it becomes a nuclear explosion, right?
The lack of being able to have a conversation to hold one's truth, of that not resonating with what they said or that person has did to you, and instead of putting the backpack and then putting the backpack and then the backpack's full, it's like, now, well, I gotta throw it all over the place, and now I can restart it, refill it again. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like you get to that point, you know, you it's full and it has to be released. And you know, I was there back in the day. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay, so you know, this is a very complex conversation we're having, because human beings are very complex, and there's so many plates spinning in a relationship. To begin with, we are attracted to people who reflect our suppressed psyche, the shadow self. See, if I am very arrogant and you are very mousy, you're going to be attracted to me because you wish you could be a little bit more full of yourself. And me being so arrogant, I'm attracted to you because, hey, there's no competition, right? I'm top dog here. I can you just listen to me, you do what I say, and honky-dory. So it begins great. You see, this opposites attract. Now, gradually, the person who is very arrogant is going to be getting a little bit miffed with the other person because they don't have enough backbone to meet my arrogance. So it's good for a while, but after a while, as time moves on, it becomes irritating. On the other hand, the person who is very, after a while, because you have to bear in mind that the person who is very arrogant or full of themselves, their deeper self is very weak. In fact, their deeper self is the other person. They're just hiding it with bluster. The weaker person has got a lot of arrogance in them, but they're suppressing it because the world says, if you display your arrogance, you're going to get whacked over the head or something. So I want to be a bit more like the arrogant self. But the more I experience the other person's arrogance, the more irritated I become with them. So conflict begins to develop. It doesn't take long for the conflict. So after a few years, the relationship is gone because in essence, they're really incompatible. However, they needed to come with each other to learn from. Hopefully, the person that is very weak and mousy will now be stronger and stand up for herself more. Could be him, okay? Could be the other way around. There's no gender here. And vice versa. The arrogant person might begin to really care for the other person, and their facade might begin to split up, cracks in the wall, and they begin to be aware that they actually need this other person. They're needy for them. So you just don't know which way it goes. But after a few years, they move, they go on to the next person, they repeat the cycle, perhaps not at the same level. And they'll stay longer with the other person or shorter, and then it will run its course, and then they'll go to the next person. And hopefully by the time they've been married 3 times, they meet the right person for them, and they're moving on, or they don't. Some people, they're stuck at the very bottom of the rung, and they stay together for life. And they don't necessarily grow. They don't have enough, whatever it is inside of them, to think any further ahead. And they have miserable lives, but that's all they know, and there is security in that. So horses for courses. So there's that dynamic within relationships. As we grow, we find different people, and these different people reflect much closer what we're like inside. And hopefully we find happiness and joy in our relationships. 75% of the time, rather than the other way around. Rather than 75% of nastiness, you now have only 25% of conflict. But ultimately, because none of us are perfect, we all have an ego. And that means that we are machine-like. So when we have a relationship with another person, what we're actually saying is, here are 2 machines who have been pre-programmed, coming together, and they are not seeing each other as human beings because their programming is getting in the way. their suppressed emotions are interfering with seeing the other person clearly. And so the process, what's important for our relationship is to work our way through that conflict, through that emotional intensity. What we do is we run away from it. And this is when the red dye drops go into the water, boom, boom, because we don't address the conflicts. So if you are the weaker person on the surface, you say, oh, well, you know, they're like this or they're like that, and it doesn't matter, and it goes away. It does not go away. It simply gets shoved to the background. A more effective way of being with a partner is to go away from the partner and explore that emotion, because the person, the machine, we call it a person, but this machine has behaved according to its programs, according to its childhood dynamics in a particular way. You press a button, they react. You don't like their reaction, but you're dealing with a machine. You're not dealing with a human being. So now I go away and I reflect on my emotions, because my reaction, he or she is not responsible for that. We blame them for their behavior as though they have individual will, as though they have a willpower. They're a machine. How can you blame your car because the brakes fail? Yeah, the brakes fail, you whack yourself on the side road or whatever, and now you're blaming the car, you hit the car, you hit the bloody tire, you know. What's the car got to do with it? You know, if you love the car that much, you should have made sure the brakes were well looked after to begin with. And this is what we do in our relationship. We acknowledge the other person has got a machine which we're interacting with. And if we don't like the program, then we need to do something about it. Now, if you want to change a program in your partner, getting angry with them ain't going to do it. What you do is you treat them, you compliment them when they do something you like. So you strengthen the behavior of what you like in them. And the more you compliment them on the good behavior, the more they'll do it. Yeah? You know, you do that with a dog, wouldn't you? We are dogs. You know, we're so much more than that, but don't fool yourself. We are machines. We have an ego, all of us. And we carry baggage from our childhood. We carry programming from our childhood, and it dictates how we perceive the world. You want to change your relationship? Treat them better.
So
The bits you like, you know, like if they behave in a way you don't like, then do not strengthen that. Don't put any energy into that aspect of their behavior. Retreat. You'll deal with this in a minute. But focus on strengthening the aspects of their behavior you enjoy. Be effusive. Oh, I love it when you do that. Oh, you're wonderful. You know, whatever it takes. Just everybody likes to be complimented. We all have an ego, right? Everybody likes to be complimented. So strengthen that. Then you go by yourself, you connect with those emotions, because what your partner has done, they have triggered your weaknesses. They have triggered your emotional weaknesses inside you. And that is what's hurting, not them. They've triggered your hurts from your past, from your own past life. So now, it's not easy, but this is how we grow. You sit, you focus on that, and you experience the emotion, whatever it is, and recognize what's behind it. Recognizes that it's you. That whenever we experience ourselves as being victims, it has nothing to do with our partners. It's all to do with us. And so we go inwards, we experience the emotion, we acknowledge it, we work on it, and then we focus on him or her. We see them for the machine that they are. We see that at that moment they're not in control, and we forgive them. It is the only way to let go of that poisoned chalice which came our way. It's no good saying, oh, I just put it to one side. No, it'll always be there. You have to forgive them, not because you're a goody-goody, but because you recognize that they're a machine acting automatically, and that your emotions are your own, that we are responsible for what happens inside us. None of us are victims. We are not victims in this world. We think we are, but that's how we give up our power. Whenever we see ourselves as a victim, we are powerless. And then we justify our anger because we are justified in being a victim. And so we go around the merry-go-round. So if you want to grow in your relationship, you need to take your emotions to yourself, work on them, and then when you go to your partner, be appreciative of their good qualities and build them up, build up the good qualities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so much people expect others to suppress their feelings and their emotions and not allow them to just feel sometimes, and I don't know why we're getting to the point where we expect perfection from other people. And as people are going through what they call ascension, and they're like growing and changing, and they're looking at the other person resentful that maybe they're not grabbing certain concepts or changing the way that they feel they should change. When I like to say, if you had a baby and the baby, was taking extra time walking, do you kick the baby out? Like, I don't want this baby no more. Forget this stupid baby.
Let me take it a step back. When you say they should, that is a mental program where your mind is now criticizing the other person for not being who for not being who you want them to be.
Expectation.
The truth is, yeah, we all have our path in life, whatever that path is. If it's good for the two of us to share the same path, excellent. But sometimes we need to follow different paths, and we have to allow people to follow their own path. We need to allow people to be different. My wife, I say, oh, look, I've just written this article. Would you like to listen to it? So,
No, no thanks.
She's not interested. She's a highly enlightened human being. She truly is. And she's dealt with most of her emotional baggage. However, her way of being in the world, she likes to be with animals. She likes to work with animals. And that's who she is. That's what she likes. This thing, what I do, that's for me, And yeah, of course, it would be lovely to have her be interested. But you know what? She's not. She'll never be. And this is how it is. We've been together 15 years. It's never going to change. We're different. We like different things. That's okay. It's okay to be different. We don't all need to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think some of that too comes from looking outside at other couples and wanting to be like other couples. Like you say, the programs of, we just want to model ourselves after stuff and not really just embracing life as it comes and just being okay with being different. Even when it comes to, like my sister said, did you watch this show? Did you watch that show? And I was like, I try not to watch too many other people's show, like too many other people's YouTube channels, because that even makes me feel awkward and weird sometimes, because I'm like, oh, well, look at the way she did it. And I want to do things the way other people do it. Or I feel maybe, insecure sometimes because I want to be cool too, but I have to be cool being me. So I can't go around watching what everyone else is doing, because then I get to, I get off track.
I don't know what you're worried about. Have you seen my podcast? They're
terrible. I saw it. It was terrible. I'm just kidding.
Well, they are. I mean, it's like I see some people and they're so polished.
Yeah.
Mine is like, God, it's like two guys having a chat in a beer hall.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just be true to yourself.
Yeah. This whole, especially 2020, I know everybody was flourishing and just popping up with all these ideas and things. And I just spent the whole time trying to not look and trying to be in the space that I'm in and being myself. And same thing, right? Jonathan and Terry, you guys, because the cars around you are driving so fast. Where are they going? Not necessarily in the right place either. So
had to take mine in for maintenance.
yeah, put my car in the shop. We were walking.
Check engines too, right?
Getting the details, get a package put in on it, and just observing the traffic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's go back like on the programs. There's so many relationships and programs and that trigger other programs within in the person or the individual. Then it becomes that mirror effect. If you're coming into a relationship, like you were saying about, you see that couple and you want to be like them in your relationship, and then there's a lot of that is influenced and seeded within the Hollywood, the TV shows, and this and that, right? And
isn't that why we're doing all these weird parties where everybody's dressed the same and they're popping balloons with colors? And I was like, when do we get so complicated with baby showers and sweet 16s with all this, like, things have really ramped up and gotten extremely expensive in competition of looking like all these other people and keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy.
I lost my thought, but yeah.
That holds the mind. That would hold their ego, right? It holds that concept of needing to be like this, so I don't become a victim and not having that. Because there's so much built up on them being presented in that way,
So for me, this path of spirituality is to do with being an ordinary human being in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the manure from which the flowers will grow. Yeah. It's the messiness of relationships that gives us the opportunity to see ourselves, to experience ourselves, to explore our emotional world as it truly is. And so rather than chasing the light and the 12th strand of my DNA, just focus on what are my emotions on a day-to-day basis, and just working through them slowly but surely. I'll tell you
would you call this treadmill the hero's journey, people? Because as soon as I get this, then I can have that, and as soon as I get this, and if I get this crystal, and if I do, and if I look,
Ego, ego, ego.
Yeah. So Sal, how much longer do you have?
I can give you another 20 minutes.
20 minutes. All right. We're going to pause